Alex Answer here. It is January 6th in the year 2017. I'm going to talk a little bit in this video how I went from a home-free lifestyle, which lasted a few years after I decided to go off-grid the first time in 2013. Ended up back in Portland, living in my vehicle for a year in 2014, and a friend at the time helped me build a teardrop camper, so I went from staying in the back of a canopy of my truck to pulling a teardrop camper around town. And I've talked about that experience in a previous video, which you can find on this channel, how I survived a year living in a teardrop camper, which is really a poor man's regular camper. And it was in that period of 2014 or so that my AdSense flipped on for the first time. So I went from making no money on this channel, even though it was on and up for about 8 years, donations here and there, to bringing in about 150 or 200 a month at that time. Not doing a whole lot better than that at the moment, but doing better in some way. Took a while to go off grid, so it went from surviving the Portland experience and not letting it kill me, not getting involved in bad things, but actually going back to Access TV and continuing to report on current events, those shows that I produced while technically being home free in a major city like Portland, Oregon. Those shows, for you to check them out, are over at alexansary.tv. Did a show on the Oregon Shanghai, did a show on Portland corruption, did a show on the homeless epidemic locally. Did not just cover global issues. Hit a lot of global, local issues that hit some nerves. And so instead of conforming and going back to, just covering or talking about what other people want to talk about, I continued staying true to myself. And that contributed to my isolation. But really, it set me free. Because in my heart, I've always had a special place for the city that I was born in. And I've always wanted to help those people because I see great disasters coming, but really I had to help myself, if you know what I mean. So what I did in April of 2014 is I left the Rose City in this, after I purchased this from someone that lived in it for a period of time, but he wanted to settle down with a new relationship and start a business, and he was done with a life on the road. And I found out that I was to be the third owner of this. Now, I'll talk about some other things, some synchronicities that also happened. So again, the AdSense, I think, starts functioning around the summer of 2014 for the very first time. And so as I went into the winter and then going into January, and was it February of 2015, a person by the name of David Ortez, who used to be with InfoWars, and he's another person that can't really speak about what happened over at InfoWars because of a confidentiality agreement. He connected me with an associate who needed someone to contribute news, and he simply found me by accident. I just merely commented on one of his videos, and he was talking about, he was interviewing someone named Freddie Lee, and they were talking about the dark side of the UFC. I also put out a video, a rant, where I'm discussing there's a major difference between the UFC and martial arts. So Dave Ortez was connected with the website owner where I post news, and then set up a Skype conversation between myself and him, and it was basically a job interview, so I literally went from having no money to boom, the AdSense, plus because I'm good at news and whatnot, and even though I didn't really bring in a whole lot of money doing my own stuff, here was an opportunity to help someone else who had already become very successful in the alternative media. So what happened from that point is I was dealing with a little bit of money from one side, and then another new source of residual income on the other end. And then when I started protesting locally against the Cuddle House, the idea of love being monetized and men being treated more like objects based on their money, I demonstrated with a megaphone on Valentine's Day in that year of 2015. And a woman watching on the East Coast of the United States donated the money for this RV. I kid you not. And what happened was, we're going to get to off-grid in just a little bit. I was going to take my 1985 Toyota pickup truck and try to drive that out of Portland. And what happened was, and thank God I got insurance before it happened, I got into an accident and I didn't total the vehicle, but did some major damage to my front. The other lady's vehicle was fine. But the rain on those Portland streets, and it was about 2 blocks from Portland Community Media, where I was doing my show for a long time. So there's no major damage done to her car, but it was the very thing that forced me to upgrade from the truck. And so I YouTubed about it, and the means to bring this into my life happened very quickly, and this was purchased for $3,000. So this was purchased with cash, and in a matter of time, literally, of making the decision that I was going to leave Portland forever. It doesn't mean I'll never visit it. I probably will later on in life, but I'll never live there. I'll never see Portlanders as more important than the rest of the country. I really understand and have understood that some of my greatest supporters have been from around the world finding my content, especially overseas. So how did it lead to living off the grid? Well, I drove the RV initially, took several days or several weeks really, stopped at a viewer's home and visited him and his family in Idaho. They were very inspired by my interview with Joel Skousen on strategic relocation. I want to say hi to Ken if he's watching still. And they relocated to a very good part of Idaho, good for growing food, fruit trees, things of that nature. Also visited some other people in Utah and visited an old friend in Colorado. And so it was good to have the money to get out, and the plan was to find some land in Costilla County. So I saved, stayed with an old friend, shared a little bit of my money for rent when I was staying in Trinidad, Colorado. So this is back in 2015, and I made my way back to Costilla in fall of 2015. For those that have never heard of Costilla County, you're in for quite the surprise. Go ahead and check out my Costilla County playlist series. So I returned to a county that launched a war on off-the-grid living. And before putting several $1,000s down on a plot in probably not a very good part of the county, very windy, by the river, it was like fate would have it that I would be stopped in my tracks. And so I started to document what was going on at the planning commission meetings and really felt run out of that county. A lot of corruption going on there. But I'm glad that I did not start a process of investing. That land would have cost about $5,000 for 5 acres. I think the guy was actually willing to reduce it down to 2,000 or 3,000. And there's a lot of people selling land in off-grid areas like Costilla that aren't actually telling the people that the land use codes have changed, that people without conventional septics, people living in RVs, since they legalized marijuana in this state, in 2012, 2013, there's been a crackdown in certain areas where they've been concerned about their water and other issues. Poor people moving in, outsiders moving in. So there's been a backlash against outsiders, and so I lived in the coldest part of Colorado, in a town called Alamosa. And despite my activism, I really felt judged by the locals for being an outsider. And, not going to get really elaborate in this video, but being racially different, I wondered if that played a role, because I saw the type of community that whites and Hispanics seemed to be enjoying, and I felt like an outsider, and I felt like I was treated like an outsider. But in the end, it was better for me to see the writing on the wall and not have any pipe dreams about community, if you will. And, I'll address in a future video why I'm not super idealistic about the intentional communities, and it's because I've tried that and I've seen the personalities that are actually out there. And I think it's more important that you learn to become independent from dependence on others, especially when you're someone in my shoes and you cover the content that I cover. It's not good to be dependent on others. They're going to flip out on you because of your content. So for me, because of the uniqueness of this content, my lifestyle, it's not good for me to be dependent on others. I am open to meeting others in the future, but in the end, it wasn't any of you that helped me find the land or this county. It was myself and my own prayers. And that's a big part of the answer to your question, how I went from homelessness for a year in Portland to my own land. There is the issue of the synchronicity of someone offering a job, the AdSense turning on, and then randomly someone watching from upstate New York who had the financial means. I'm not sure what industry she was in, but she wasn't living in poverty. It's one of the rare times that someone of wealth has chosen to be giving. Most of the people that have donated have been people that have not been well off. That's usually how things are. I've seen many times how the poor help the poor. That was a rare example of my life, of someone of financial means, and I never really knew their full identity, but someone of financial means donated for this to happen. And other money that was saved in that period of the summer of 2015, went to purchase about 2,000 or 2,500 in gold and silver. So when I did sell that gold and silver at 20% below spot at that place in Alamosa, rude lady who runs that silver and gold place in Alamosa, she was like, "Answery, huh?" In regards to my last name. That's not too many people will actually do that. Uh, so someone that made money on me and made an awkward comment, she also played a role in me having the money to put the down payment on this property, which was $2,500. And it was worked out with the realtor. And this year took a few months for the paperwork to go through, and we did it through a title company, and I signed probably over 10 documents. So there is a contract between myself and the landowner, or the person that sold this to me, the previous landowner, to pay a certain amount for the next 4 years. It's not like an unfixed mortgage or anything like that. It's a set amount, 8% per interest, which isn't too bad. My credit's like 540. It's not very good. That's below the average. Mistakes I made financially when I was younger. Never really got involved in correcting my credit. So you can even call it a miracle that the whole thing happened the way that it did. The overall cost of the land, is 12.7 plus 8% interest per year. Now, some people say, "Well, Alex, that's really, really expensive." I actually really enjoy the off-grid groups on Facebook, like the ones with a lot of members, because they're really active with advice and information. And I did a little poll this holiday season asking people how much they pay to live in the city. And of course, when you're renting, you're paying for something that you're not actually going to own. And I was getting numbers like $20,000 a year, $30,000 a year, $40,000 a year. And this is just to live. And so if you look at all the different costs to live in a city, look at parking costs, look at transportation, look at insurance, look at gas, look at rent, look at utilities. Look at even the cost of food in some areas where it may be more expensive. Lower income areas, some of their grocery stores aren't all that great in some cases. It just depends. I've actually noticed that in wealthier areas, the prices are a lot more affordable. Some of the city markets are Kroger's. So it took time, but I noticed synchronicity when a friend of mine who lived in Costilla for many years was also looking in this county or this area, also in the state of Colorado. And so I saw that as a sign, and then I came up and visited in the spring. Never felt like received by the community here. I am different politically. I am different in a lot of different ways, too many to list, but I've talked about this at great length in other videos and other podcasts. Subscribe if you're new. So it was really a combination of prayer, the right amount of money to be in my hands at the right time, for the associate's website gig to come up, for the AdSense to turn on, and of course random donations at various moments by people that for whatever reason felt compelled to want to help, even if they found the content to be unsavory later on. A moment in time, it's almost as if God was working through them. And that's honestly what I believe. I don't believe it was an accident. I don't believe it was an accident for me to get into that accident, for me to be, "Oh my God, I'm so fucked. I was planning to get out of here and this is happening," and boom, boom, boom. And this was actually, a few people agreed to buy this. A few ladies, a few hippie chicks. They're going to travel the nation with this. And they had an agreement with the owner that they were going to give them the money, and they never came through. And the guy said, "If they don't come through, I'll give you a call." And it works, It's not like I had a mechanic look at this. Now, I am going to upgrade this, and I'm going to hang on to this. But in the next month or so, I'm looking at getting another vehicle. I'm not going to be driving something that's 5 miles, 8 miles to the gallon to town and back for supplies. So fingers crossed, ladies and gentlemen, that I find a Jeep Cherokee for $1,500 in this area or so in the next month. As you can see, the driveway is full of snow. A lot of people wouldn't want to be snowed in, but I'll tell you what, after a year or two of living in this thing and that being the home, the idea of being off-grid and making payments and my money going to the land and not gas was the goal. So what I can tell you is it came about through prayer, through, I believe, over 10 years. I mean, some people are a little startled that I'm even able to make even $100 a month off YouTube or $200. But the thing is, the YouTube channel has been around since 2006. And I put in a lot of work doing the TV show. So even though a lot of people that, want to see a well-produced show have left, oh yeah. I've also attracted a lot of people that are interested in my off-grid journey. They don't, see a need to see me in a suit and tie or, be mimicking, mainstream media graphics. I actually found it very sad that there are so many people that really demand a certain type of presentation. What I found was you can literally live on the road with less. People will assume you're on welfare. People will be jealous, especially those that work regular jobs. They don't see any reason why people, would support alternative media content, or how someone would make money off ads, or how someone could use their brain at coffee shops or libraries to work on someone else's website for several hours. It's a really new concept for a lot of people. So even people that live off the grid, they're like, well, that's not off grid to have a satellite dish. And in a way, it's like we are in the new world, to where we can use technologies like this. Little grounding rod right there. That's in case this thing gets struck by lightning, it'll ground itself. We have tools at our disposal now that can make off-grid living more possible. Residual income from online work. And there's a lot of, it all takes energy. My main focus is to keep making videos, daily videos. And get a part-time job when when we're in spring and I have the car, because I certainly have a bit of cabin fever. I certainly can't tell all of you that you can do it the same way, because I feel like something higher, greater than myself, intervened. So how did that happen, or why, if it did? It's a result of the work that I've done, the information that I've put out there, the people that I've helped with that information. And that's actually going to be the thing that's going to be an asset to me in the future. That's why I don't worry about certain things where others are in a state of worry. Even if they're New Agers that say, oh, just be peace, love, and happiness. Don't be negative. Be happy all the time. It's like I see fear in a lot of them over money and having to resort to certain things to make money even in this world. And it's like what I can say that I've done is maintain my independence, mind, body, and spirit. I've stayed away from some of the, a lot of the religious dogma and political dogma. I've stayed true to myself, and lo and behold, look at this. Look at this. I'm surviving, the winner. Where a lot of people would assume that, I wouldn't have made it a few years ago. They're like, go back to the grid. Oh, you don't have internet. You can't do it. A lot of people out there also think that you have to have survival man skills, mount man skills. That you have to be all that, or if you're off the grid, that you're claiming you're all that, like one dude that, someone just walk out there butt naked and just survive with their hands alone. And no, that's not what's being claimed. But I'll tell you what, it takes a lot of strength, power, and focus to just simply leave the city and to be willing to be snowed in for months on end. There's not a whole lot of people out there that would choose to even have a lifestyle like me, even if they could, to where their lifestyle is based around living with less, being poor, being alone, but having everything they need and having technology and communicating daily, morning, evening, messages of truth. Most people don't live like that. In fact, I'm not aware of that many off-gridders that are doing TV shows or videos outside of just simply off-grid living. Or showing their RV and going, hey, here folks, here's my generator. Okay, here we are. Here's my battery bank. Okay, today, folks, we're going to show you how to wire up. No, that's not the kind of channel this is. So, as far as I understand, not only am I bringing up a lot of ideas and concepts that others aren't, I'm doing it in this kind of environment. So, going back to our topic, with regards to getting this land, it took time. The land that I wanted initially ended up being purchased by someone else. And the realtor, she said she had her own private financer. So initially, she said, well, the guy doesn't have very good credit, but he has proof of income through these sources, and here's his bank account. The guy said no. So she literally then went, okay, let me ask the owner themselves if they'll take $2,500 and agree to a payment plan and so on and so forth. And the answer was yes. And I was really scared at that time. I actually had court in Costilla County, and I was dealing with a lot of anxiety that they were going to hit me with some sort of charges, defamation. You exposed us on YouTube. Now we're going to try to fuck your life up. So in the transition from covering all that in Costilla County and feeling abandoned in some ways by the people down there, feeling that America even left them hanging, especially when I covered what happened to the Vietnam veteran Daryl Carter, the guy that was kicked off his land on Thanksgiving. That was horrible. And I even felt that my own audience abandoned me. Us, really. And it's nothing personal, but a lot of people came across a story in Costilla County, and very few people did anything about it. So, to go from that situation to surviving last winter in that RV right behind the Alamosa Walmart parking lot, which is actually now turned into a very bad area. Check out the Facebook group called Taking Alamosa Back, and you'll read all about the crime stories there. So, like, I was also one of the first to actually do a video in Alamosa. It's called The Bad Blood in Alamosa. Check it out on YouTube. And it offended a lot of people last year saying, who are you? You're not from here. Go back where you came from. Our city's great. And literally, here we are a year later, and the heroin problem and the meth problem is so great there, they have a Facebook page called Taking Back Alamosa. I was right there, too. I was right. So, because a lot of the stuff that I talk about, it pisses off a lot of people that don't want to hear it. And lo and behold, whether they recognize the fact that I came before the mainstream media and talked about stuff before it was news, that seems to be the case with a lot of things. So when I got the thumbs up that we were going to do this, it still took several weeks for the closing date. And I went through a lot of anxiety, wondering why can't we just do it now, like today, like I got the money. No, we have a closing date, and it was put off like a month. It was like there's this piece of paperwork, then this piece of paperwork was all done with the title company, all done professionally. So there's a contract there. You know, and I'm going to pay a certain amount, $250 every month for the next 4 years, and then this is mine. And some people say, well, you don't actually own anything if you have to pay property taxes on it. And I find that sad that people would even go in that direction, to take something away from someone that actually worked really hard. You think that I'm going to cry about $150 a year in property taxes when people pay more than that per month to rent something they'll never own? And gee, I wonder if that person's saying that as a renter. So I have a lot of hope for this property. I'm hoping to have a garden right over here and to develop friendships with the right people that I can allow to come onto this property and visit. I'd like to build an additional home, guest house, little makeshift bench here. Do a little additional trimming, firewood mitigation over here as well. A chainsaw is one thing that I need. So, I mean, there's a process to becoming self-sufficient with regards to growing food and building things. It takes time. The first step is to get on the land. And as far as this, the amount of money invested in this is $4,000. And I'll show you this real quick for those that have not seen my previous videos. That, by the way, is good for baking bread. And you can find that at a number of box stores, and I've been heating using propane because I'm missing a piece for the actual wood stove because it's a 5-inch diameter. Alright, so you can't see much because it's dark. So this is a loft that is in this shed, and this loft, labor included, cost $300 to construct. It was done in a day, and the two people that did it, I met them at a local restaurant where I worked full-time, almost full-time, for about 2 months, even washed dishes. I got hired the same day, July 3rd, 2016. Getting ahead of myself there. I've worked at many restaurants throughout my life. I've worked most of my life up until the age of, say, 2009 full-time. And my regular work type of reality matrix kind of ended around 2012, 2013. That's when I started to go off-grid for the first time. Lived for 9 months in Costilla County, just to rehash. Went to Portland with nothing but a backpack. Left a car that I spent $2,000 on. Well, actually more than that, because the transmission went out. And stuff inside it. Just went back with the same backpack and clothing, literally, that I left Portland with in 2011 the first time. Talked about the teardrop camper. You know, so I wasn't like hobbling around the street, you know, smoking crack and shit. I just literally was in the back of a teardrop camper. I didn't have a regular residence. And I saw how Portlanders that even knew me as an Access TV guy, a guy reporting the real news, they just assume, well, dude's probably a drug addict. Everybody's a drug addict who's homeless. Isn't that how it works in Portland? No, that's not how it works. There are other issues and reasons why some people are choosing to not spend $800 a month on rent. So I started thinking, geez, I don't want to spend $800 a month. I want to own something. People may be laughing at me now, calling me homeless bug welfare. He's probably an addict, who's receiving money from the government. No, 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 and no. So I kept up the faith. I saw the universe assist me with tools so I can become more independent. When I saw more signs, also by 2014, that it's no longer wise for me to visit my audience or people that I don't already know. And I've seen a lot of people in real life with a very, very, very small minority of you that have actually generally been nice when I've met you. That's the reality of it. That's the brass tacks. So my life improved when I stopped opening up myself to my audience and just like, okay, I'm going to move over here or meet this guy, and always an issue, maybe with their girlfriend, who knows what it is. Once I started becoming more independent and living in my RV and then using that computer, it's my little headlamp there, got to make sure I get more batteries. This is a little lamp, by the way, little battery powered lamp, and the batteries are recharging here. This is something that I use. This is something that I use as a backup power option, and this cost me $100 on eBay. And it's called the APC 1500, and I highly recommend it or getting several of them. So you can run like a modem off this for an hour and a half or charge a computer for about an hour and a half. And even without even good internet, spending $100 a month for 10 gigs for Verizon, Jetpack prepaid, yes, that's expensive. But if 10 gigs a month can enable you to post 15 articles a day on a website, which is about what it is, depending on the size of the JPEGs, that's still money. That's still money. So here I am in the early stage of 2017. I am better positioned than ever to, say, go on a real vacation. So I'm thinking about even Reno. I don't know if the money's going to be there. I don't really have extra money. I'm saving up, right, like I said, for a Jeep Cherokee in the range of $1,500. The idea of going back to work and working anywhere and bringing in money is so much more exciting and desirable when you have your own land and you know that money's going to go to something that you're going to own. It's like, yes, I earned this, and it's not just going to go to rent. It's going to go to improving my building, maybe a vacation. Now that I've been going through this healing process and healing from the effects of the city, now I'm ready to literally jump outward. So I'm working on podcasts, as you see. I'm working on videos. I'm saving a lot of money. I'm not making a lot of money, but I'm not spending a lot of things. Spending on a lot of things. I have an internet bill. I have a land payment. I got to pay for heating. And then, of course, there's gasoline to run my generator so I can run my computer so I can come to you when we have snow, for example. And a lot of people said I couldn't do it. And a lot of people have acted like you got to be all this and have a machine gun to fight off the bears and on and on and on. Bad advice. Coming from people that don't even live off the grid. So what I can say is I feel like it's a success story. This is just the beginning. I think about where I was last year and the year before, and I see each year as just like a major milestone. So I'm really looking forward to 2017. So yeah, this is my video. I went from that brief home free experience and the factors, conditions, prayers, intentions that led to this reality.